People who were alive then. What were you doing December 31st, 1999? I was working that night. I worked at a hardware store, and my boss wanted a couple of guys to stay at the store in case anything went wrong. Hell, if I knew what to do if anything did. So me and this other guy drank whiskey, listened to tunes, played cards and video games in the store. Midnight came and went. Nothing happened. Our boss came by around 12:30 and paid us $500 each in cash, and then I went to a house party until 5 in the morning. Worth it? I was a broke-ass college student in 1999. $500 back then was a gold mine. I specifically remember going on to Wonka.com to play Oomba's Outrageous Rush because I was scared the Millennium Bug would wipe out the site. Kids these days don't appreciate the bullet we dodged. My best friend and I set up a Batcave in my bedroom this year. We were 14. We somehow managed to get 6 televisions and 2 computers in my room, stacked them up and proceeded to play Zelda 64 on one, Donkey Kong Country on another, threw a movie on the third, then all 3 local channels just in case something happened. Then we ate a bunch of candy and Ben & Jerry's before falling asleep. That sounds like a killer time at 14. I spent the day as part of an emergency response team for Y2K for the company I work for. Basically, I was in a conference room for 13 hours, counting down midnight across multiple time zones, waiting for something to break. None of our equipment broke. So basically I sat in a room bored to death counting down Y2K about a dozen times that day. So counting it down again didn't hold much interest for me. I went to my GF's house and went to sleep before midnight in our own time zone. That was the last night party my family had. It had been a really big tradition for our friends and family for years. Everyone came out for it, but we had stopped for a couple of years. I don't know why. Parents were too busy, I suppose. Y2K was different though, and not just because it was a possibility that it could fuck up computers, and thus everything else. My dad didn't really think it would do anything, but just in case, he still prepped. Mostly because it gave him an excuse to buy fun stuff. So our basement was well stocked with MREs, meals ready to eat package, and water. Plus he had bought a generator and lots of gas. He was pumped. But the real reason we had a night party that year was because we had found out in April that my father had advanced colon cancer that had spread to his liver. My parents found out in November that he had at most a few months to live, although they didn't tell us at the time. So it was really one last big party to see him off. And again, everyone came out for it. It was mostly a great time, if you were able to ignore the fact that my dad looked like he had aged 20 years. His sallow skin was even more yellow, and the bald look did not work for him at all. Once we hit Greenwich Mean Time, we knew nothing would happen, and I honestly think he was kind of let down. But we still did fireworks and fucked around and had a good time. That party also went down in family history because it was the final straw in the marriage of some close family friends. We had known them for over a decade. We were all very close, and they were supposed to come to the party. But the wife never wanted to go out and do anything, and so she refused to go to the party. The husband, like most adults, could see the writing on the wall. This was Bob's goodbye party and she was refusing to go. She couldn't even bring herself to support her friends as they went through this. Couldn't even make an appearance for their sake. That was the end of it. They divorced not long after. He's happily remarried and she is happily alone. Seriously. I'm not saying that like I'm happy she's alone. She's happier this way. So that was how I spent my night that year. My dad died 10 days later. Early in the morning, in our home. I feel dirty upvoting it, but that rocks. Dad got to say goodbye to all the friends. The divorced couple is happier now. I mean, it all worked out. Well, thanks for making us feel old. Seriously, those who were alive back then, as if it wasn't less than 20 years ago. I was 11. I lived in a very rural part of Ireland at the time. Nothing around us except fields and forests and the coast behind us. I was babysitting my little brother and sister whilst my mum and stepdad went out to the nearest town to celebrate it. I stayed up until midnight, and instead of watching the TV with all the fireworks and celebrations, I went outside, climbed onto the house roof, and watched the stars for a while. I didn't even check when it ticked over to the year 2000. I stayed up there for about 15 minutes, drinking in the few rare silences of this new millennium. Monsieur climbed back down, had a hot chocolate, checked on my siblings, and went to bed. Edit. Well, fuck me, this blew up. For all those saying I'm not Irish because I call my mother mum and not ma'am, you're right, I'm not Irish. I'm English. We moved there for a few years with my mum's fella who is Irish who found work there. My house was a bungalow, so climbing the roof was easy. I wasn't drinking in the silence, I was drinking in the silence, as in taking it in. For all those asking where I lived, it was Mayo, just a little outside of a town called Louisburg. It was amazing. I suggest anyone who wants to see Ireland to go. It's beautiful. And yes, my username is in relation to my time in Ireland, as when I moved back to Britain as a teenager and told my new friends my nickname suddenly became Leprechaun, or Lepers for short. Imagining this makes me feel very nice and warm, monsieur. Partying like it was 1999. We had just moved to a new town for a new job and finally were out of poverty. The Christmas before we thought we had a future after years of struggling. I was pregnant. My husband had just gotten employment. Then right before Christmas my husband was laid off and we lost our insurance. We spent the next few months on survival mode. Baby was born in emergency circumstances which, thanks to Medicaid, turned out well. We were granted food stamps which gave us a 2-month bumper we didn't have before. Summer of 1999. When we had $200 in our pocket and nothing more. We were finally offered this job. We took a loan to move and my Phil co-signed it. He told us never ask that of him again. By Christmas of 1999, we had money in the bank. We actually had a Christmas. We had told my Phil that we'd pay back that loan within a year even though we had 3. We accomplished that and were never prouder. Near 20 years later we own a home, a couple practical well-running vehicles, have savings, and carry no debt. That New Year's we stayed home in the bad apartment we had to move to at first. Grateful and happy. 2000 was the start of a better life for my family. I had been involved in a serious accident wherein I lost consciousness and a lot of blood. I was in the urine hospital for quite some time. When I got out, I had forgotten what day it was and that it was New Year's. We drove back to a small trailer where we were vacationing. A large tractor truck pulling a flatbed trailer was driving by. On the trailer was about 20 drunk people with all kinds of New Year's Eve jewelry and flair. I was so confused until I heard them counting down and then seeing all the fireworks. Edit. Oh my god, I never did wake up. That's the reason why my life is amazing? Because I'm inventing it. Is Eileen in a hospital bed? No, I have bad news for you. You never woke back up from the accident. You're laying in a hospital bed right now in a coma. You can't wake up until you realize you're not awake. This could be your final warning before they unplug you. PLS wake up, John. Please wake up. So I was pretty young at the time. But I remember my cousins and I really wanted to stay up for New Year's. My mom, aunt, and uncle didn't really want us staying up, and my dad needed to go into the office at about 11 so that he was there at midnight to make sure everything was okay. So they came up with a plan. My aunt, uncle, and cousins come the day before or the morning of New Year's Eve, and my cousins and I played all morning, early afternoon. In the middle of the afternoon, my dad and uncle took us to a movie. While we were gone, my mom and aunt changed all the clocks in the house. So when we got home, we thought it was several hours later than it actually was. When our clocks hit midnight, we celebrated New Year's and went to bed pretty soon after. I didn't find this out until years later. So for years, I thought I had stayed up to until midnight to watch New Year's when I had really celebrated it a few hours early and then slept through it. Party on the dark because at the stroke of midnight someone plugged one too many things in. We thought that Y2K had actually happened. I was 12 years old and the family New Year's Eve party was at our house that year. Earlier in the day, my dad showed me the main breaker in the garage and told me to run in and pull it right at midnight. I did and went back to where everyone was and nobody seemed to notice or care. Getting drunk with cousins on stolen liquor and dancing to Dre's Chronic 2001. DMX's Flesh of My Flesh. And the Slim Shady LP in the basement of the mountain house that the family had stocked with food and firearms, just in case. We also went sledding at like 10 at night because the moon was so bright and the parents were too drunk to complain. Edit Silver? Please tell me that doesn't cost money. I love how your parents were worried about the Y2K thing to the point they got a house in the mountains and filled it with weapons. But not so worried they couldn't get shit-faced. Lying on a remote beach in Western Australia with my favorite cousin, watching the satellites go past and talking shit about our respective annoying siblings. We were 12. Good times. Shitting in a diaper, probably. Me, too. Except I was 43 at the time. At an NSYNC concert in Hawaii. Yep, rang in the new year in the most epically 90s way possible. I was working as a pizza delivery boy in New York. By that time I was starting to suspect that my girlfriend was cheating on me. I got a pizza to deliver and I bumped into my girlfriend and she did in fact dump me there and then. I proceeded with the delivery and locked my bike, however someone stole it nearly right after. Upon delivery at the building, I noticed that it was a crank call. The pizza was for IC Wiener. I proceeded to eat the pizza and drink a few beers. By midnight I must have fell and hit my head, because when I woke up it was December 31st, 2999 and these two guys said, "Welcome to the world of tomorrow." Edit. Thanks to whoever gave me gold. It made my day and will make my Christmas more bearable. We need more. This sounds amazing. Have you thought about making a cartoon or TV show about your adventures in 3000? Yeah, I was going with the name Billy West, but it sounds too made up. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.